The sun rose slowly over a quiet suburban neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Birds chirped in the trees, and the soft hum of cars passing in the distance filled the air. In one of the modest homes, a woman went about her morning routine, humming softly as she made breakfast. She moved with care, setting plates on the table, her eyes warm and gentle. She was a mother, devoted and loving, known in the neighborhood for her kindness and willingness to help anyone in need. Her children were getting ready for school, their laughter filling the small kitchen. They chatted about their plans for the day, sharing stories about friends and homework, while she reminded them to eat properly and pack their bags. The morning felt ordinary, calm, and full of the kind of quiet happiness that often goes unnoticed. But in a heartbeat, everything changed. From the corner of the street came the sound of sirens, growing louder with each passing second. The family looked up in surprise. The woman's heart skipped a beat, sensing that something was wrong. She stepped outside to see a police car screeching to a halt in front of the house. Officers jumped out, their movements urgent and tense, radios crackling in their hands. Before anyone could understand what was happening, one of the officers shouted, demanding everyone stay where they were. The woman tried to calm the situation, raising her hands and speaking clearly. "Please, I don't understand. We haven't done anything wrong." Her voice trembled, but there was strength in it, a mother's instinct to protect her family. Her children froze behind her, eyes wide with fear. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering among themselves, unsure of what to do. One officer seemed particularly on edge, his hand hovering near his weapon. Miscommunication and fear collided, creating a dangerous tension in the air. The woman took slow steps backward, trying to keep her children safe and comply with every instruction. But in a moment that felt suspended in time, shots were fired. The sound was deafening, echoing across the street and through the neighborhood. The woman fell to the ground, pain shooting through her body, and a stunned silence followed. Screams filled the air. Her children ran toward her, tears streaming down their faces, while neighbors rushed out to see if anyone could help. The officers, realizing the gravity of what had just happened, shouted for medics and tried to regain control of the situation. The street, once peaceful, had turned into a scene of chaos and heartbreak. Miles away, a man received a call that would change everything. He had been on a mission, focused and disciplined, carrying out work that few could even understand. As a Delta Force commander, he was trained to handle extreme situations, but nothing could prepare him for this. The voice on the other end was trembling, delivering words that made his heart stop. His mother had been shot by the police. She was in critical condition. Time seemed to distort as he processed the news. Every thought collided with the next. Disbelief, fear, anger, and a deep, primal need to protect his family. He gathered his things in record time, every movement precise, controlled. He knew he had to get to her, to see her, to ensure she was safe. His military training told him to stay calm, to plan, to act, but his heart was a storm of emotions. The journey back home was a blur of traffic lights, turns, and a racing mind. Memories of his mother flooded in, her smile, her gentle touch, the way she always made everyone feel welcome and safe. He remembered how she had held him when he was a child, teaching him courage and kindness. Now she needed him more than ever. At the hospital, the scene was frantic. Nurses and doctors moved quickly, attending to his mother. He pushed past the waiting area, demanding to see her. His presence commanded attention, not through intimidation, but through the undeniable aura of someone who refused to be ignored when his loved one's life was at stake. The staff, recognizing his urgency, allowed him in, and he found her lying on a hospital bed surrounded by machines and medical equipment. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow, but her eyes, when they opened, held the same warmth he remembered. He took her hand gently, speaking to her in a voice soft but firm. "I'm here, Mom. You're going to be okay. We're going to get through this." Her lips curled into a weak smile, a small comfort in the storm of pain and fear. The doctors explained the extent of her injuries, their voices clinical but filled with the weight of responsibility. He listened carefully, absorbing every detail, already formulating what steps needed to be taken next. Outside the room, the world seemed to move differently. The officers involved were unaware of who they had shot, the ripple effects of their actions unknown to them. Meanwhile, he quietly began to piece together what had happened. His mind, trained to analyze and strategize, began reconstructing the events leading up to the shooting. Witness accounts, the timing of sirens, and the officers' reactions all started to form a clearer picture in his mind. Yet even as he focused on gathering facts, he did not forget to comfort his family. His children clung to him, seeking reassurance while he offered words of strength, holding them close, whispering promises that everything would be all right. He understood that courage was not just physical, it was emotional, and right now his family needed him to embody it fully. The night fell, but sleep was impossible. He stayed by his mother's side, watching the machines, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. Each beep was a reminder of her fragility, and every flicker of consciousness a small victory. He reflected on the life lessons she had instilled in him: resilience, patience, and unwavering love. Those lessons were now guiding his actions, keeping him steady amid the chaos. In the quiet moments, he thought about the officers outside, about the misjudgments that led to this moment. Anger and frustration surged within him, but he controlled it, knowing that rash actions could worsen the situation. He needed clarity, a precise understanding of what happened, and a plan to ensure justice without causing more harm. The story of that day was only beginning. The events would ripple outward, affecting not just his family but the entire community. But in that hospital room with his mother fighting to survive, the focus was clear: protect, support, and never let fear dictate actions. The bond between mother and son, unspoken yet profound, became the anchor in a world suddenly full of uncertainty. As the hours passed, he remained vigilant, a sentinel at the bedside of the woman who had always been his guiding light. Every decision, every thought was centered on her recovery and the safety of his family. The neighborhood outside slowly settled, the sirens faded, and the initial chaos gave way to a tense, watchful silence. But inside, the story of courage, love, and resilience was just beginning to unfold. With a son determined to face whatever came next, armed not just with training, but with a heart that would not rest until his mother was safe and justice was served. The sun had set, leaving the neighborhood in a soft blanket of darkness, with only streetlights casting long shadows across the quiet streets. Inside the hospital, the air was filled with the low hum of machines, the occasional footstep of a nurse, and the faint smell of antiseptic. The Delta Force commander remained by his mother's side, unblinking, attentive, every sense sharp, as if time itself had slowed to allow him to focus on her. He watched her chest rise and fall with each shallow breath, remembering the mornings she had always been there to wake him with a gentle touch, the evenings spent reading stories and sharing laughter. Those memories felt distant now, but they gave him strength. He whispered softly, telling her that he was there, that she was safe, and that she would get through this. Though her eyes were barely open, he could see recognition, a flicker of comfort in the midst of pain. His mind, trained to analyze every situation, began working methodically. He needed to understand what had happened. He thought back to the moment the police had arrived. The officers had acted on a tip, reacting too quickly, too harshly, and his mother had paid the price for their fear and misunderstanding. He knew that anger alone would not help. He needed facts, evidence, and a plan. He started by asking questions, carefully listening to the nurses and doctors who had treated her. Each detail mattered: the number of officers, the sequence of events, the statements given by neighbors who had witnessed the incident. Every piece of information was a puzzle piece that would help him see the bigger picture. He was relentless, not in aggression, but in precision, a skill honed through years of disciplined training. Outside the room, the police officers involved had returned to their station, unaware of the identity of the woman they had shot. They were nervous, aware that a serious incident had occurred, but still oblivious to the ripple effect it would have. Inside, he continued to gather information. He spoke with neighbors who had been watching from their windows and porches, each recounting their own version of events. He took mental notes, recognizing the inconsistencies and the fear that had colored everyone's perception. Meanwhile, the family gathered in a small waiting area, struggling to process what had happened. The children were quiet, leaning on each other for comfort, while other relatives arrived, their faces pale with worry. He moved between them, offering steady words, holding hands, and giving silent encouragement. He knew his presence mattered as much as his words. They needed to see calm and control in a world that felt suddenly unpredictable. He also reached out to friends and colleagues, people he trusted, to ensure that no unnecessary risk was taken. Though his training made him capable of handling extreme situations, He understood that he was in unfamiliar territory now. This was about family, emotions, and human fragility, not military operations. He had to balance strategy with empathy, action with patience. As the night deepened, he realized that while the hospital provided immediate care, there was a larger issue at hand. Accountability had to be addressed. He needed to understand how a simple misunderstanding could escalate to violence and almost take his mother's life. He began documenting everything in his mind, noting the behavior of the officers, the response times, and the gaps in communication. Every detail mattered. Every overlooked fact could make a difference. Despite the gravity of the situation, he allowed small moments of humanity to shine through. He held his mother's hand when she winced in pain, whispered memories of better times, and encouraged her to fight through the fear and injury. He noticed the subtle changes in her breathing, the faint tightening of her fingers around his, and felt a small spark of hope. These were the victories that mattered now, the tiny signs that she was still with him. Outside the hospital, the neighborhood slowly began to grasp the scale of what had happened. News traveled quickly, and the initial shock was replaced by murmurs of concern, disbelief, and anger. Community members gathered, some bringing food, others simply offering their presence and support. The incident had shattered the calm of the area, leaving everyone questioning how such a tragedy could occur in a place they had always considered safe. He knew he had to act, but he also knew that the first steps had to be careful. Any rash decision could escalate tensions or endanger his family further. He started by contacting a trusted lawyer, someone familiar with sensitive cases and capable of navigating the legal system. They discussed options quietly, reviewing potential actions to ensure his family's safety while holding the responsible parties accountable. In the quiet moments, he reflected on his own emotions. Anger was natural, but he could not let it consume him. Fear and grief were heavy, but they could not cloud his judgment. He focused on clarity, on action, on support. He was a protector, not just in the military sense, but as a son, a brother, and a father figure to those who depended on him. Hours passed like minutes as he remained vigilant. Every sound outside the room, every movement of the medical staff, every shift in his mother's condition was noted and analyzed. His senses, honed through years of training, allowed him to detect the subtle signs that others might miss. He was ready to respond to any change, any threat, any unexpected development. The family started to open up slowly, sharing stories, crying quietly, and leaning on each other for support. He encouraged them, reminding them that their mother was a fighter, that she had faced challenges before, and that together, they would help her recover. These words were not empty. They carried the weight of lived experience, of confidence built through countless missions and personal trials. As dawn approached, there was a sense of cautious relief. The immediate crisis had passed, but the road ahead remained long and uncertain. His mother had stabilized, but she was still in critical condition. The officers involved had yet to face consequences, and questions about accountability and justice lingered in the air. He knew that the next steps would require patience, strategy, and careful execution. He sat quietly, holding his mother's hand, thinking about the journey ahead. He would need to balance advocacy with empathy, investigation with compassion, and strength with vulnerability. He reflected on the lessons his mother had taught him: courage in the face of fear, kindness even in difficult times, and the importance of standing up for what was right. Those lessons were guiding him now, providing clarity in a world that felt suddenly chaotic. Throughout the night, he never left her side. He observed her breathing, adjusted her pillows, and whispered reassurances that she could feel even in her weakened state. He made mental notes of the medical updates, planned for conversations with the hospital staff, and considered the approach he would take to address the incident legally and socially. Every decision was informed by love, training, and the unwavering commitment to protect his family. By morning, a fragile calm settled over the hospital room. His mother had survived the night, and though she was still in critical condition, there was hope. The neighborhood outside was beginning to stir, with whispers of concern and solidarity. He remained focused, aware that the next phase of this story would require even greater resolve and strategy. In that moment, he understood the depth of responsibility that came with his position, not just as a trained military operative, But as a son, a protector, and a human being, he would navigate this challenge with the same precision and dedication that had guided him through missions around the world. But now the stakes were even higher, personal, and infinitely more emotional. The fight for justice and healing had only just begun, and he was ready to face it step by step, with unwavering determination and a heart full of love. The morning sun filtered through the hospital windows, casting a soft glow over the room where the mother lay resting. She had survived the night, and though her body bore the marks of the shooting, there was a quiet determination in her eyes that mirrored the determination of her son standing vigil by her bedside. He had not slept, moving carefully around the room, adjusting her pillows, checking her monitors, and speaking softly to keep her calm. Outside the hospital, the world was beginning to stir. The officers involved in the incident had returned to their station, and the first whispers of accountability began to circulate. They were unaware of the true identity of the woman they had shot, or the fact that her son was not an ordinary man, but a highly trained Delta Force commander. The son, however, was acutely aware of the potential danger and the need to act quickly but carefully. He began gathering evidence, methodically and quietly. He spoke with neighbors who had witnessed the incident, taking in their accounts of what had happened. Each description, each observation added to the picture he was constructing. He noted inconsistencies, small details that others might overlook, and used his analytical skills to form a clear understanding of the events. Every step was deliberate. He knew that patience and precision would be necessary to ensure justice. Meanwhile, his family tried to navigate the shock and fear that had gripped them. The children clung to each other and to their father, seeking comfort and reassurance. He moved among them, offering steady words and calm presence. He reminded them that their mother was strong, and that together they would support her recovery. He encouraged them to express their emotions, to cry and to share their fears, while also instilling hope and courage. As the day progressed, he made contact with a trusted lawyer who could navigate the legal process on their behalf. They discussed strategies for addressing the incident with the police department and ensuring that the officers involved would be held accountable. He was careful to balance his approach, knowing that aggressive action could escalate tensions. His goal was justice, not vengeance, and he approached the situation with the discipline and clarity that had guided him through years of military service. Throughout the day, he also monitored his mother's condition closely. He observed the subtle changes in her breathing, the way her fingers moved slightly when he held her hand, and the brief moments of recognition when he spoke to her. Each small sign of improvement was a victory, and he allowed himself to feel a quiet sense of relief while remaining focused on the larger challenges ahead. The media had begun to pick up the story, and the neighborhood was buzzing with speculation and concern. He was careful to manage the information, speaking only when necessary and ensuring that false narratives did not take hold. His training in high-pressure situations allowed him to remain composed in the face of public scrutiny, balancing transparency with discretion. He spent time reviewing the security footage from the neighborhood, carefully analyzing the sequence of events. He noted the positions of the officers, the movements of his mother, and the reactions of the witnesses. Each frame provided insight, confirming some details and revealing others that had been overlooked. He knew that a clear understanding of the incident would be essential for both legal proceedings and community awareness. Despite the intensity of the day, he made moments to connect with his mother on a personal level. He reminded her of the love and support surrounding her, shared memories of happier times, and spoke of the future they would face together. Her strength was evident in the small movements she made and the faint smile that occasionally appeared. These moments of connection were vital, grounding him emotionally and providing motivation for the work that lay ahead. The officers involved were beginning to feel the pressure as the investigation started to take shape. They were called in for questioning, their initial statements scrutinized against the evidence he had gathered. The son observed these proceedings closely, ensuring that the truth would be revealed without unnecessary confrontation. His approach was methodical, using strategy and intelligence rather than force, knowing that careful planning would yield the best results. In the midst of all this, he also found time to support his family emotionally. He encouraged open conversations, allowing his children and other relatives to express their fears, anger, and confusion. He reminded them that their mother was a fighter and that their collective strength would help her recover. His presence was a stabilizing force, offering both guidance and comfort. The hospital staff, recognizing his dedication and calm authority, began to share more detailed information about his mother's condition and the care being provided. He listened carefully, asking questions and taking notes, ensuring that nothing was missed. He coordinated with doctors and nurses to understand the steps necessary for her recovery, balancing medical guidance with his own observational insights. By evening, a sense of cautious progress had settled over the hospital. His mother had shown small signs of improvement, and the initial shock of the incident was giving way to a more focused effort to ensure justice and recovery. The son continued to monitor the situation, planning the next steps for both the legal and personal challenges that lay ahead. He knew that the road would be long and difficult, but he was prepared to face it with the same discipline and determination that had guided him through every mission in his career. The community began to show signs of support as well. Neighbors who had once watched in fear now approached with gestures of kindness, offering food, assistance, and solidarity. The incident had shaken them, but it also awakened a sense of collective responsibility and empathy. He acknowledged their support quietly, recognizing the importance of community in healing and accountability. As night fell once again, he remained by his mother's side, vigilant and attentive. He reflected on the events of the past days, the fragility of life, and the unexpected challenges that can arise at any moment. He understood that his role extended beyond immediate protection. It encompassed advocacy, strategy, emotional support, and the unwavering commitment to ensuring that justice was served. In the quiet hours, he planned the next phase of action. He would gather formal statements, consult with legal experts, and continue to document every detail meticulously. He would engage with community leaders to ensure awareness and support, and he would remain by his mother's side throughout her recovery. Each decision was guided by experience, discipline, and an unshakable sense of responsibility. By the end of the third day, a fragile sense of order had returned. His mother was stable, the investigation had begun, and the family had started to navigate the emotional aftermath. The son remained vigilant, fully aware that the most challenging moments were still ahead. Yet in that room, surrounded by monitors, the quiet hum of machines, and the steady presence of family, he found a sense of purpose and clarity. He knew that the coming days would test him in ways different from any mission he had undertaken. This was a fight for justice, for his mother's recovery, and for the integrity of the community. It required not only skill and strategy, but empathy, patience, and resilience. He was ready, committed, and determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead, step by step. With unwavering dedication and a heart focused on love, justice, and the well-being of his family, the hospital had settled into a steady rhythm. Nurses moved quietly, doctors discussed cases in hushed tones, and monitors beeped with regularity. His mother was stable, resting with a blanket pulled up to her chin, eyes closed, occasionally twitching her fingers as if reaching out to him. He sat beside her, alert and watchful, a calm presence in the midst of lingering tension and uncertainty. He had spent hours reviewing the events leading to the shooting, piecing together the timeline in his mind. He knew the police had acted on a tip, but it was clear that fear and miscommunication had driven their actions. He was determined to ensure that responsibility was taken seriously. He contacted a trusted lawyer again, this time discussing steps for accountability, from formal complaints to press engagement. Every word was weighed carefully, knowing that public attention could either help or complicate matters. His family remained close, each member quietly processing the incident. His children sat nearby, coloring or reading quietly, while other relatives offered support, their concern visible in every movement. He moved between them, gently reminding them to eat, to rest, and to share their feelings. He knew that emotional support was just as important as any legal or medical action he could take. Outside the hospital, the officers involved were being called in for questioning. The son was aware of each development through contacts and reliable sources. He observed everything with a strategic mind, noting the officers' statements and their attempts to justify their actions. He stayed calm, knowing that measured responses would have a greater impact than anger. His training had taught him that patience and intelligence often achieved more than confrontation. He also engaged with the community, speaking with neighbors and local leaders to ensure the truth of the incident was accurately represented. Misunderstandings and rumors could spread quickly, and he knew that transparency, when handled carefully, would help prevent further harm. He shared only what was necessary, protecting his family while fostering understanding and empathy in the neighborhood. Back in the hospital room, he watched over his mother as she began to regain more consciousness. She whispered softly, her voice weak but determined, and he leaned closer, listening intently. He reassured her, promising that justice would be sought and that they would face this together. Her eyes, though tired, reflected relief at seeing her son, and he felt a deep sense of purpose and connection. As the day progressed, he coordinated with medical staff to ensure the best possible care. He asked questions, clarified procedures, and monitored medications. Every small detail mattered, from adjusting her position to making sure she was comfortable. His presence was both a comfort to her and a safeguard, ensuring that nothing was overlooked in her treatment. In the midst of managing the hospital and legal matters, he also took time to reflect on the lessons this experience had taught him. Fear and misunderstanding could escalate quickly, and lives could change in an instant. Courage and clarity were essential, but so were empathy and patience. He reminded himself that his mother's recovery and their family's emotional well-being were just as important as seeking accountability. The community's response grew stronger. Neighbors who had once watched silently now offered meals, words of encouragement, and assistance wherever possible. The incident had shaken everyone, but it also awakened a collective responsibility. People realized the importance of being present, of understanding, and of supporting one another. He acknowledged their gestures quietly, grateful for the solidarity, knowing that community strength would play a role in healing. As evening approached, he prepared for the next steps. The investigation would continue, and he would need to provide evidence, witness statements, and documentation of the events. He coordinated with the lawyer, making plans for meetings, interviews, and formal complaints. His focus was precise, strategic, and unwavering, but he balanced it with care for his family and his mother's health. Throughout the night, he stayed by her side, speaking softly, reading to her, and gently guiding her through small exercises to keep her alert and engaged. He noticed her responding to his voice, eyes opening slightly, fingers tightening around his hand. These moments, though small, were victories, evidence of her resilience and determination. He also took moments to help his family process their emotions. They spoke quietly, sharing fears, frustrations, and hopes. He listened without judgment, providing reassurance and perspective. He encouraged them to express their feelings openly, understanding that emotional healing was a necessary part of the overall recovery. His presence was a stabilizing force, giving them confidence that they would face this challenge together. As the night deepened, he reflected on the larger implications of the incident. Misunderstandings, fear, and poor communication had nearly cost his mother's life. The officers involved would face scrutiny and accountability, but beyond that, there was a lesson for the entire community. Awareness, empathy, and careful judgment were vital in every interaction, and he hoped that by addressing this incident thoughtfully, they could prevent similar tragedies in the future. By morning, a sense of cautious progress had taken hold. His mother's condition was improving, and the first stages of the investigation had begun. He remained vigilant, coordinating with medical staff, lawyers, and community members. He knew that the road ahead would require persistence, patience, and a balanced approach, combining advocacy with empathy and strategy with care. He spent hours observing, planning, and supporting, ensuring that every action taken was deliberate and thoughtful. His mother's recovery was his priority, but he also remained focused on accountability and transparency. He knew that justice would not be immediate, but his steady presence, careful planning, and unwavering commitment would guide the process. The hospital room, once a place of fear and uncertainty, became a center of quiet determination and hope. His mother rested, slowly regaining strength while he remained vigilant, ready to act, speak, or intervene whenever necessary. His family, reassured by his presence and guidance, began to feel a small sense of normalcy returning. Through all of this, he never lost sight of the human side of the situation. He treated the officers involved with fairness, focusing on facts and evidence rather than personal anger. He respected the medical staff, valuing their expertise and guidance. and he remained deeply attuned to his mother and family, ensuring that their emotional and physical needs were met at every step. By the end of the 4th day, a fragile balance had been achieved. His mother was stable, the family had begun to adjust, and the investigation was moving forward. He knew that there were still many challenges ahead, but he was prepared. With discipline, patience, and unwavering dedication, he would see this through, ensuring his mother's recovery, his family's well-being, and the pursuit of justice for the harm that had been done. The morning light broke gently through the hospital windows, signaling another day of careful recovery. His mother was awake, her eyes clearer than before, and though her body still bore the pain from the shooting, there was a quiet strength in her gaze. He sat beside her, holding her hand, speaking softly, reminding her that each day she grew stronger and that she was not alone. He had spent the past days balancing his focus between her recovery, family support, and the pursuit of justice. He had gathered witness statements, reviewed footage, and consulted with legal experts. Each step had to be precise, thoughtful, and measured. He knew that rushing could create more problems than it solved. Patience and strategy were just as important as courage. His family, though still shaken, had begun to regain a sense of stability. The children were cautiously returning to their routines, helped by the constant reassurance of their father. Relatives and neighbors offered small gestures of care, bringing meals, checking in, and lending emotional support. The community, once in shock, had begun to understand the gravity of the incident and the importance of empathy, communication, and careful action in preventing similar tragedies. The officers involved in the shooting were under investigation, called in for detailed questioning, and their initial statements were being scrutinized against the evidence he had collected. He observed this process quietly, ensuring that it remained factual, fair, and focused on accountability rather than revenge. His calm presence and strategic approach ensured that progress was made, without inflaming tensions or creating unnecessary conflict. In the hospital room, small victories became milestones. His mother could sit up longer without discomfort, respond more clearly when spoken to, and even smile faintly when he shared memories or reassured her. Each movement, each flicker of recognition, filled him with hope and renewed determination. He reminded her and himself that healing was a process and that they would face every challenge together. The legal process began to take shape. Formal complaints were filed, witness testimonies organized, and community leaders engaged to ensure transparency. He remained present throughout, guiding each step with clarity and resolve. His goal was not punishment alone, but accountability, awareness, and a meaningful resolution that would prevent similar incidents in the future. Each decision was weighed carefully, considering the emotional impact on his family, the community, and the wider public. He also made sure to nurture the emotional well-being of his children and relatives. He encouraged them to talk openly about their feelings, to express fear, anger, and hope. He reassured them that their mother was fighting, and that their collective strength would help her recover. These conversations, filled with honesty and empathy, helped restore a sense of stability and trust within the family. The community's response grew even stronger as the days passed. Neighbors who had initially watched in fear now rallied in support, offering assistance and sharing words of encouragement. Local organizations reached out, providing resources for families who had experienced trauma. He acknowledged their support quietly, recognizing that healing extended beyond the hospital walls and that collective care was essential. Throughout this time, he remained vigilant, observing the officers involved in the incident as they were questioned and monitored. He noted their reactions, inconsistencies in statements, and gaps in the timeline. His military training gave him a keen eye for detail and a methodical approach to problem-solving, which he applied to ensure that the investigation remained thorough and just. He understood that accountability was crucial not only for his family, but for the community's trust and safety. As his mother's condition continued to improve, he focused on helping her regain independence. He encouraged small movements, gentle exercises, and engagement with visitors. She responded with determination, her spirit reflecting the resilience that had always defined her. He reminded her of her strength and the love surrounding her, and she clung to those words, drawing courage from the unwavering support of her son and family. The son also took time to reflect on the lessons of the past days, Life could change in an instant, and fear or misunderstanding could escalate into tragedy. Courage, patience, empathy, and clear judgment were essential tools for navigating both personal and broader challenges. He understood that the experience had tested not only his tactical abilities, but also his emotional resilience and leadership within the family and community. As the investigation progressed, the officers involved began to recognize the consequences of their actions. Public scrutiny, community concern, and clear evidence created an environment where accountability could no longer be avoided. He monitored the process, ensuring that it remained focused, factual, and fair. He remained calm, knowing that the most effective outcomes were achieved through careful planning and deliberate action. Back in the hospital, moments of connection became precious. He held his mother's hand as she spoke about her fears, reassured her that the family was united, and reminded her of the life and love that awaited outside the hospital walls. She responded with faint smiles, small gestures of recognition, and the gradual restoration of her strength. Each day, the bond between mother and son deepened, strengthened by shared experience and unwavering care. The children, observing their mother's resilience and their father's dedication, began to understand the importance of courage, patience, and family unity. They felt safer, knowing that their mother was healing and that their father would protect and guide them through the challenges ahead. These moments of emotional growth were as significant as any legal or medical progress, shaping the family's collective strength. By the end of the week, a sense of cautious triumph emerged. His mother's health had improved substantially. The investigation was moving forward with transparency and fairness, and the family had regained a measure of stability. He continued to balance vigilance, support, and strategic action, ensuring that each step contributed to justice, healing, and community trust. In the quiet moments, he reflected on the journey they had endured. The incident had tested every aspect of their lives: emotional resilience, family bonds, community trust, and the pursuit of justice. Yet through it all, they had demonstrated strength, courage, and the ability to face adversity with clarity and compassion. He understood that recovery and accountability were ongoing processes, requiring continuous care, reflection, and action. The story of the past week became a testament to the power of love, strategy, and perseverance. A mother's strength, a son's unwavering dedication, and the support of a community had transformed a moment of fear and violence into an opportunity for growth, healing, and accountability. Each victory, no matter how small, reinforced the importance of courage, empathy, and measured action. As he held his mother's hand one final time before leaving for the night, he whispered promises of continued protection, unwavering support, and a future shaped by resilience and love. He knew that challenges might still arise, but with family united, a community engaged, and justice pursued with care, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The experience had changed them, strengthened them, and illuminated the path forward, one of healing, courage, and the enduring power of love and commitment.